Amazing testimony update. For the last 9 months in a row, we have hosted a monthly gathering to share the update, the testimonies, and really just filling the internet feeds around the world and social media feeds with the good news of what God is doing. I want to start out, first of all, there's so much to cover. It's unbelievable. I'm on my way to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, which I'm going to share with you how significant that is. But I want to start off with this really quick. This right here is the booklet that we released last fall. And it is basically the annual report of our ministry. Now, in case you guys may be new here, you're not aware, I have 3 separate nonprofits that I lead. This is specifically talking about Sean Feucht Ministries or Let Us Worship. And we released this booklet, which kind of detailed what God had us do last year, how everything was, some testimonies, some updates, analytics for those of you guys that love that kind of thing. And then we really launched a vision for 2025. Now, I was looking back on this and what we envisioned for 2025, what we were throwing out there, a pretty ambitious dream, right? Isaiah 61, which I'm about to read again to remind you this journey we're on. Revive in 2025. That was the goal. That revive in 2025, that we would go to these cities right here in the US, that we would go to these cities in Canada, and that we would go to Israel. And I'm just excited to report to you that we've done about twice as much already this year that we had promised in this booklet. Twice as much than we fundraised for, twice as much that we mobilized for. And, I go back to that verse, exceedingly abundantly beyond what you could ask, think, or imagine. Even as I'm sharing that with you guys today, last night, after I put the kids to bed, I was finishing listening through the latest mixes of a new album that we're releasing next Friday. This is my first time ever officially announcing that. Next Friday, we're releasing a new album from Canada. It was captured live in Canada. And at the same time as I was listening to that, I was also editing through a new book manuscript that we're also going to be releasing soon on spiritual warfare. Both of these projects weren't planned, just like half of our itinerary wasn't planned, just like our trip this weekend to DC wasn't planned. But God loves surprising us. And one of the things I've learned in the midst of all that we've walked through this year as a ministry, with my family, with our team, the greater the resistance, the greater the breakthrough. The greater the pushback, the greater the spiritual warfare, the greater all the stuff. It really means God's about to do something big. And so, on September, what is it? What's the exact date? September 4th, 2025. I can proudly and confidently report to you that this has by far been the most fruitful year of our ministry by all metrics. Now, some of you guys may be like, well, what does fruitfulness really mean? Well, for some of you, it could mean many different things. It could mean salvation, souls, people reached, the countries visited, cities hosted events at. It could be how many people have been baptized, how many people have been, healed, how big has our reach been online as our videos and testimonies and stuff has gone around the world. Well, all of that stuff, nothing in the prior years even compares. So God has just been so good, and we will be working on an updated book coming soon, giving you guys the full report. And in the live stream here, we'll put the details on how you can get one of these, because I really like printing physical copies. So I'm a big physical copy guy. I don't use the e-Bible. I use a real Bible. I'm an analog guy. I don't know what it is, but I just like to have it in my hands. And so for those of you out there that would love to hold our report of what we're doing, please sign up on the link and we'll make sure that we send you one this fall. I want to start out first by just rereading this mandate of Isaiah 61. I'm trying to do this every month to just remind you guys, like, hey, as a ministry, it may seem like we're doing a lot of stuff, which we are. It may seem like we're covering a lot of bases. However, we are sticking to the script that God gave us at the beginning of the year, actually the end of last year, Isaiah 61. And it says this: The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me because he's anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew ruined cities that have been devastated for generations. So sometimes I hear like, Sean, how do you guys decide where you go and what cities? Well, it was pretty easy for us this year. We basically picked the top 15 to 20 worst cities in America. Worst for crime, worst for corruption, worst for rapes and murders, and basically just horrible cities, right? And they coincidentally happen to be some of the same ones we've been going to for years. And so we started off in Los Angeles, which was right in the middle of these crazy wildfires that swept through the city. And the last city that we were in on that list was Seattle, which I'm proud to give you guys an update on. We survived Seattle. I think this is my sixth time now going there. But before I get to Seattle, I want to talk about Canada, okay? I want to give you guys a quick update. So many of you have been praying and have been reaching out over the last, oh gosh, several weeks, and you saw our journey there. Obviously, Canada is a nation that I love. I've been doing ministry there for over 20 years. I've been going up there leading worship. Never had a problem. Never really had much of a pushback. And but from the very beginning of this year, this was our third year of bringing Let Us Worship to the nation of Canada. The other 2 years, we did events across the country. I believe we did 3 events in different provinces in 23, and then 24 last year, we did 4 events. Well, this year, I really felt like we were supposed to go coast to coast, because on the Canadian coat of arms, it says that the Lord will have dominion from sea to shining sea. That's literally on their coat of arms. It's inscribed into buildings across Canada, like that God would have dominion. Like it's a big deal, And so we wanted to activate that prophetic word over the nation and go from sea to sea. And so we started out with our bus and our truck, and had to get the permits and had to get the carnet and had to do the tariffs and dealt with all that kind of stuff. And we started in Halifax, and one by one, as you guys saw probably in the news or from our updates, every venue canceled us. And it was unprovoked. We had permits, we had everything in place. However, there were some activists, some LGBTQ activists that kicked it into high gear and really went in bed with the government and the CBC, which is their main government-sponsored news agency, and just started to attack our events and pressuring these cities to cancel. So we ended up having 9 out of the 11 cities cancel in Canada. And the devil always overplays his hand. That's one of my favorite things I love, is the more attention, the more media focus, the bigger this story became, to where at one point on the weekend where we had the smoke bombs thrown at us inside of a church in Quebec, that weekend, this worship being canceled in Canada was the #1 news story on Twitter, on X. It was a more viral than Trump's trip to Scotland or Sydney Sweeney's jeans. It was just crazy. It went bonkers. And because of that, everybody in the nation was talking about the right to worship. Everybody in Canada was discussing it, and it was obviously a very polarizing issue. However, God was using this movement, Let Us Worship, born in the pandemic, to literally challenge the anti-Christian bias in the nation of Canada and the governments and the media. And it was a wild journey. We finished all 11. There was only 2 cities out of the 11 that didn't cancel. That was Edmonton in Alberta and Saskatoon in Saskatchewan. Both of those had a lot of protesters, but the government held to their guns. So good for them. But it really started to awaken something. And what was amazing is the more protesters and activists and media outlets that came, the more that they were actually freely propagating the message of the gospel. They were showing videos and pictures and hearing the word of God. Many of these people that would never step foot in a church. We had protesters that were so shook because they were told that we were hateful and we were bigots and whatever. And all of a sudden they just see Christians on their knees, thousands of Christians taking communion, or they see us dancing and smiling, or at different points in some of the nights, I actually had the attendees go and pray over the protesters. I mean, it was just an incredible journey, a lot of resistance, very expensive. I mean, just as a heads up, there's still tens of thousands of dollars we haven't got paid back from these venues, that we paid into. There's insurance. There's so much cost that went into this that, they're saying we'll never be able to recoup. However, God used the controversy to promote the gospel. It's what we've seen. It's been our history. We don't go looking for it. We don't go seeking it out. However, when it comes, we stay consistent. We stay faithful. So big shout out to our team in Canada. They were moving venues last minute everywhere. One day we were on a farmer's field. The next day we were on a strawberry farm. The next day it was just like every day it was a new adventure with God. But I was so moved by the hunger of that nation, and in the midst of a culture that's very antagonistic of the gospel, I started to see signs of awakening. It really felt like 2020 again. It was just so amazing, and I can't wait. A week from tomorrow, we're going to release the album live from Edmonton, and we're actually calling it I've Got the Joy, because in the midst of the resistance, God was bringing such joy. This is literally in Isaiah 61. It's exactly what we read, that he'll bestow a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. So even the titles and the records we were releasing flow into the prophetic vein of what the Lord told us to do. Next, I want to talk about Seattle. We were there this last weekend. I want to give a praise report. Seattle and I have a wild history. I grew up in Montana, and Seattle's the kind of the first biggest city that I ever went to as a kid. Grew up loving the Supersonics. Went to my first NBA game there, my first baseball game there, I think my first football game. I just loved city of Seattle, and obviously we saw in 2020 and further how it's been taken over by anarchy and murder and crime and Antifa. And not sure a lot of you know this, I'm sure you do. Those people don't like worship. And so in 2020, when we showed up to Gasworks Park, it was barricaded, and the city spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in the middle of the pandemic to block Christians from gathering in a peaceful park, while just blocks away, anarchy was taking place in the CHOP zone. While protests and BLM marchers were going through and setting cities on fire, they decided to allocate their resources to blocking Christians from going into a park. So anyway, in typical Let Us Worship fashion, we just set up outside of the park, and we had a phenomenal, amazing worship event. It was powerful. However, 5 years later, almost to the exact day, we got an invitation from the mayor of Seattle. I still have voicemails on my phone from the mayor of Seattle, one of the bluest cities in America, inviting us to come back to Gasworks Park, the same place we were banned from, and to worship. And guys, I can almost not believe it. I mean, it's crazy to see that when these politicians and these people, when they realize that you are not going to give up, like we're going to go anyways, it's like they have to honor your courage. And so we ended up working together with the police and with the mayor, and we hosted an incredible gathering in Gasworks Park just this last weekend. It was so powerful. And of course, every media outlet picked up on it. Franklin Graham even tweeted about it and told everybody to pray for us. I mean, just the support from men in the body like that has been so encouraging. So that was just so powerful, and we just saw God move. And one story I want to share with you, my keyboard player. He's my music director, which basically a music director is the one that basically organizes the band, gets all the songs together, runs through the sound check, gets everybody on the same page, communicates to everybody. Well, the guy that runs, that's my musical director, is a guy named Chino. He's a Hispanic guy from the greater LA area. Well, I got to share this story in Seattle about how Chino was once the guy that protested me. And that my musical director playing on stage in Seattle was a guy that at one time protested me. And after protesting several times, it was the love of God that drew him to continue to return back, the curiosity that drove him to protest me. Then all of a sudden, after a few times, he just had to give in to God's love, because that's how good his presence is, right? So he ended up ended up rededicating his life, ended up laying down his anger and animosity and all this stuff. And then, long story short, we found out he was a musician, that he's a good one, and now he's traveling and playing with me. And so that story was so powerful, because I was sharing that while the protesters were surrounding the event, raging, yelling, screaming, playing kazoos, cursing us out, having signs with the worst, most perverse stuff you could ever imagine. And yet, when I shared that story, while we were packing up at the end of the night, protesters were walking up to Chino and saying, "How did you go to the other side? Tell us how you ended up going to the other side, how you ended up from a protester to being on stage." So Chino got to share his testimony with protesters that night. I just think that's one of the coolest stories. The next day after that, we were in Missoula, Montana, my hometown. We mobilized with the local church for worship teams to go up to the top 7 surrounding peaks around the city and worship on the surrounding 7 mountains. And then we came down and we had a big worship service in the park that I used to grow up in as a little kid, right in the center of town, which is coincidentally the most bluest liberal part of the whole state, is downtown Missoula. And we had just, I don't know, 1,800 people down there. It was just such a powerful time of worship. And then we went to Yakima this last weekend, which is always a favorite place with the most hospitable people. So many people came down to the altar, young people just throwing their drugs. I don't know if you saw, if you scroll back on my social media, you can see the pictures of all of the drugs that were thrown on stage. It was like a pile, guys. It was vapes and pills and weed and alcohol thrown on stage. It felt like it was like 2020 again, like it was that level of deliverance. It was unbelievable. And so, man, we have just been riding a high, trying to get our energy back. Obviously, I say that, but the moment I land at home, I have 4 kids, and they're in 4 different sports at 4 different times. And my wife is like, finally, you're back to help me, And so it's not always the most restful, but it's been so good to be home. And tomorrow, I want to just share with you about this weekend, and then I want to pray. Actually, 3 things I want to share with you. 1, this Saturday, maybe is one of the most significant things that we've been a part of in the last 5 years. And I want to explain why. For the last 5 years in a row, we have mobilized worship on the National Mall in DC. You guys know this, you know our story. In 2020, everything culminated on the National Mall. It was October 25th, which is 10:25, Hebrews 10:25, which is the verse that says, "Don't give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing." Now, that day on the National Mall in 2020 ended up being the largest recorded church service in America the whole year, because churches were closed, and we had almost 10,000, maybe more, on the National Mall in 2020. We came back the next year and we did it again. And that year was the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. We came back the next year and we did it again. We came back the next year. We came back last year at the end of the 50-state tour on the National Mall. So 5 years in a row, we've been going to the National Mall. We've spent millions and millions and millions of dollars worshiping Jesus there in the center of our capital. People, I think, some people understand, other people may not get it. Like, Sean, why does it take so much? Why do you have to raise? I mean, when you go to 50 US capitals and you got to get permits and bring your gear and drive your bus and bring a band and do flights and everything. I mean, it is millions of dollars to do this stuff, right? But I don't apologize because I want to give Jesus more. Like, we're about to watch the NFL kick off its football game tonight, first game of the year. And hundreds of millions of dollars will be spent before our very eyes, and no one will think a thing about it. Why would we not want to give an offering of worship to the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords? It costs us something. So for 5 years, we've done that. This Saturday is the first time the U.S. government, the Trump administration, has personally invited us to come and do it again. Year number 6, the government now is saying, why don't you come and do this? They just posted, literally right before I got on this call, they posted this. This is insane, guys. I don't know if this has ever happened before. Right here, this is, I'll post it so you guys can see it. It's America 250. It's the America 250 logo, right? The official 250 year. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And then it says the Foundations of Faith Night, Prayer, Action, and Hope in Times of Disaster, National Mall. They're promoting right there our gathering that is happening this Saturday on the National Mall. The U.S. government is promoting this as an official event of our nation. Like, think about this, guys. Think about how good God is. Think about how, we became the #1 COVID violator in so many states, and the pushback and the fines and the fighting the governments and the lawsuits and all this stuff. And it's like now we're being invited by the federal government to do what we've done for the last 5 years, and we're going to do it in year 6 in partnership with them. I mean, this to me, talk about things you didn't plan for in our little cute book. I mean, I look at this like cute little book. God, we're going to come up with a cool plan for 2025. And the Lord's like, I'll show you what kind of plan I got for you. And he just blows it out of the water. And so here we are on Saturday, working in partnership with the U.S. government to welcome the presence of God onto the National Mall. It's going to start at 6 p.m. It is not going to be live streamed, as far as I know. They're not going to be live streaming this. I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. So you got to come. So anybody out there that's anywhere on the East Coast or close or can get a cheap plane ticket, you need to show up. I cannot stress what a big deal this is. I don't know in the history, I've been talking to prayer leaders, faith leaders, people. I don't know in the history of America if we've ever seen the U.S. government personally advertise and host a worship revival event. I mean, this is absolutely unheard of. And so I'm over the moon, guys. I think about it and I just get so emotional, like, because all of the years, all of the time, all of the hours, all of the dollars, all of the logistics, all the times I've come on live streams like this and I've been pushing people to go and show up, and now we have the government, the U.S. government. Oh, God, you're so good. And then on Sunday, the last thing I wanted to mention, and then Reese is going to be on here and he's going to jump on and take your questions. Sunday, we are hosting an event in Central Texas. And this is going to be us following through on the dream of my heart and so many of yours to help the flood victims, the natural disaster event. This is actually what we're talking about on the National Mall, how hope and healing and prayer and worship is the response from the U.S. government to natural disasters. And then I'm going straight to Texas, Harker Heights, Texas on Sunday, and we are going to be hosting Let Us Worship at Vintage Church. You guys don't want to miss it if you're anywhere near, like Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston. All of those places are kind of close. Come and join us at 5 p.m. It's going to be so powerful. And our bus has stopped in 4 different cities along the way: Yakima, Washington, Boise, Idaho, Salt Lake City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, picking up aid to distribute in Texas. And we just want everybody out there in Texas to know that we haven't forgotten about you. And we are going to follow through. And Sunday is going to be a really powerful day. So the National Mall Saturday, Sunday in Texas. And then hopefully I'm going to take a nap. But I just wanted to thank all of you. Wanted to give you this quick update and let you know that God is moving so far beyond what we could imagine. We're not done yet. The last thing that I want to tease quickly here is the Lord's given me a really strong burden for the fatherlessness epidemic in our nation. I could go into all the statistics of how we are the #1 fatherless nation in the world by far, 3 times over the next country below us. 25% of children in America grow up in a home without a father. It's an epidemic of proportions we don't even understand, and it has wreaked havoc on our society and our culture, on the home, that's led to violence and abuse and all kind of stuff. And I believe God is my life was changed as a kid watching the Promise Keepers movement and seeing that movement, being a part of that. And I just believe God is raising up like a 2.0 fiery, passionate movement of fathers, you know? And so I am so honored to be joining with my friends in Dallas, Texas for the first ever, we're calling it a Man Up Conference. It's called Man Up. I just love that name, Man Up Conference, where we're calling men to come together and we are going to train and equip and raise up men. I'm actually bringing my 13-year-old son with me because I want to model what it's like for fathers and sons to do this together. So that's going to be October 10th in Dallas, Texas, 10th and 11th in Dallas, Texas at the Dream Center. And we're so excited about that. That's just a huge burden that God's given me for this nation. And so we'd love for you guys to be a part of that. And then we have another date for Halloween where we're going to actually be taking over the darkness with the light, hosting Let Us Worship on Halloween. That announcement's going to be coming very soon. And then, of course, New Year's Eve in Florida in the baseball stadium. It's going to be epic. So anyway, that's all the news from me. I want to pray over you guys, and then I'm going to jump to an interview that I have. I did a Fox News interview today. I'm about to do a Newsmax one now, just sharing about Washington, D.C. So pray for me that as we release this clarion call to our nation, that many people would respond. Lord, I thank you for the privilege today of sharing this historic and maybe most amazing update that we've ever had in the history of Let Us Worship. I thank you, God, that you've led us into, Lord, a year of fruitfulness beyond our imagination. Lord, I thank you for those that are out there that have been praying for us and holding us up in prayer, and even those out there, God, that have been so sacrificial in their donations and resourcing this revival move of God, Lord. Lord, I pray that you would give us even greater stewardship, God, on how we contain and continue to propel this movement of revival forward. God, we know the best days are still in front of us. Lord, that there is so much juice left in the tank, God, that you have made it abundantly clear that doors are continuing to open that we never even imagined or dreamed of. And so, Lord, I just pray for every person out there, God, that, Lord, that even today you would break off our doom scrolling mentality of regurgitating darkness and the media and the skepticism and the cynicism. And Lord, even just for this quick call, Lord, that we would hone in on the incredible testimony of Jesus that's spreading across the world. God, thank you that we get to be alive in such a time as this where you're moving in such a profound way. And I pray every person out there is filled to overflowing with hope and joy in Jesus' name. Now, I want to just quickly mention before we cut the line,